going hot.
All right, Stochastic, here we go. It's your old pal EMac coming to you on a Sunday morning here with one Matt Belman as we have a gigantic, a huge, an oversized 7-game slate. What's going on today, Matt?
Nothing, man. No, excited to be back on here with you, talking some MLB. Caught the end of the women's basketball gold medal game, which was a phenomenal game. And yeah, excited to talk some MLB with you. I don't really understand why I was trying to place the teams. I know the Cubs and White Sox don't play today. The Royals and Cardinals do not play. I don't get it.
So every team gets a Sunday off this year, and I can't remember the reason why. I don't know if they were trying to set it up because it doesn't even work for like makeup games, right? Because if not everybody's off, that's just not going to happen.
Right.
So I think it's something to do with the way they're trying to compress the schedule a little bit. So they're just trying to fit in an extra day for everybody. Because if they stretch it out too much and gave everybody the days off, then that really impacts the playoff. And we already are starting to have weather issues with the playoff, depending on what cities they're going to be in as it reaches towards the end of October. That is my guess. I vaguely remember reading something about it. Otherwise, teams do get the days off when they're playing in another country, right? We know that, but that isn't the case for these today. And there was some, I forget which teams, but they had the week off last time too. So in any event, it just makes for a thinned out set. This is the first time I remember there being 4 teams out. Usually it's just one. But between that and then the 11:35 game, we have a 7-game featured slate, and then I think it's only just 2, maybe it's 3 games on I guess it's 2 games at 4 o'clock, and then Sunday Night Baseball, which features the Seattle Mariners, which I can't remember. I was trying to find some article to say how long it had been since the Mariners were last on Sunday Night Baseball. I think the last time they had Sunday Night Baseball in Seattle was like maybe once in the last 20 years. That's just wild to think about.
Well, we know they were on Sunday Night Baseball for that one game against the Indians in the mid-90s, right?
Oh God, was that actually Sunday Night Baseball, that massive comeback? I hadn't even
It was.
that would have been why I was watching it. Yeah, when the Mariners were up by like 12 or 14
Right.
runs in the 6th inning and started sitting people, and yeah, the Indians came back. Spoiler alert. All righty. So weather, don't really have any. That makes it pretty nice here. The other thing, I'm going to see, because I thought FanDuel said they were doing 8 games. What game did they add? Oh, they did add Coors Field. Okay. So DraftKings is going with 7. FanDuel is going with 8. They do have Coors Field. Again, it's a coin flip as to whether they include it or not these days. So that gives that a little bit of an imbalance. And then Yahoo is going with the 4-game slate. There are 3 games at 4 o'clock, and then they're reaching back and taking Sunday Night Baseball, which, as I mentioned, is in Seattle. Got a couple nice pitching options up at the top here, Matt. I had a great night on Yahoo last night, covered my DK losses again, and then I won my bets on Hard Rock. So overall, it was a profitable evening. But damn it, my luck on DraftKings has just not been good these days. How did you fare last night?
Well, I didn't play the Braves, so not very well. They finally went off, and I did not play them. So my night was not great, but happy to be back on here today. Best part about DFS is it's always that day that counts.
Indeed, indeed. If Arcadels is around, I know he had a decent night. Melissa finished up there top 5 in one of the mini maxes, so congrats to her. Caleb Wiggins, I see you left a super chat. Thank you. If you have one here, uh, we will get to you. And let me see if I can do that for you, Mike. Yeah, no, that was part of the whole reset issue. God forbid technology work for me. And it's funny, it's like, oh, you should reboot your computer more often. I do. I shut my computers off every night because I'm such a tech jinx. I need to make sure they get every single update that is possible because otherwise I'm in trouble. Well, I'm in trouble twice because my computer doesn't work, and then my wife gets mad at me because she's tech support. So she's good at this stuff. But let's look at the games here, Matt. Up at the top, we've got Dylan Cease. He's going to be everyone's favorite pitcher. Oh no, he only threw one inning in his last start. What happened? Well, that was a rain delay. Pirates misjudged the forecast, so he only pitched one start there. So it's been what 16, 17 days since his no hitter, so he should be fully refreshed. He is the clear top option. We've got a bunch of question marks, but they're decent matchups for these question marks here. It'll just be depending on how we want to spend our funds. Matt, what do you got here? Is Dylan Cease your clear cut number one?
Yeah, I don't know how he couldn't be. I mean, he has to be on this slate. It's not even just about Cease himself. It's the matchup. It's the lack of other viable aces on this slate. So I don't think you like have to play him in all your lineups, but he's the clear top pitcher overall on paper. 40% chance of being a top two guy on this slate. You know, he's going to be over 60% owned. So yeah, over owned, but I don't know. He's in such great form. You talked about the no hitter. It's not even just the no hitter. It's the few starts before that too. He dominated Cleveland. Um, he's pitching really, really lights out right now, and he's in a good spot. You know, in a great pitcher's park in Miami. A lot to like about Cease here.
Yeah, Miami has just a 3.2 implied run total here. They have gone into extra innings each of the last three games, um, but Miami has scored, I think it's 13 runs over their last, or pardon me, over their last 13 games. They have, I think it's 18 runs or something like that. It's something horrible, even though they did have 8 runs yesterday. So they're just scuffling along. We know they traded away everything that wasn't nailed down. The back five of their lineup is almost non-existent. Nobody. Am I on FanDuel pricing? No, I'm on DraftKings. Here's the DraftKings prices for Miami. You have Xavier Edwards at 4,500, leadoff guy. He's been pesky, getting on base, stealing some bases. Jake Berger, 4,200, showing a little pop. Jonah Bride, 2,600. Really? He's batting cleanup. He showed some pop. Jesus Sanchez, little power, little speed, 3,300. Everybody else on their roster is below 3,000. That's dreadful. That is just dreadful. How can we not play Dylan Cease? This is just 3 up, 3 down territory. It's almost, I mean, five guys here are absolute zeros. Their 5 through 9 hitters are just awful. Damn. Sunday lineup on top of not having any talent. It's a shame. It's a shame. It's almost like the hangover lineup we're going to start to see as teams clinch their postseason contests here. So clearly, Cease is our top dog. You know who also has a little bit of dog in him? That would be Chris Bassett. See what I did there? Bassett, dog. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. It's a professional here, kids. Don't try this at home by yourselves. So Chris Bassett's in his age 35 season. He still has a 3.95 ERA. That's 7 consecutive seasons he has been under 4. His career ERA is 3.54. That is just darn impressive. And he's still striking out almost 1 per 9, or one per inning, or 8.6 per 9 innings. So even though Oakland, we loved them for a while there, Matt. Remember that just awesome scoring stretch, or that 6-week stretch where they just kicked ass? Do you realize that over the last 7 games, they've only scored 13 runs? That's not very good. Power's still there. Strikeouts are still there, but we like Cease. I don't know what to do with JP Sears. Some people confuse him with JP Lozman. I normally don't, because I always know it's JP Sears. What do you like from this game? Because I think we need our second pitcher from this game.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't like Bassett as much as the field does here. I get it. Like he seems cushy and in a cozy spot at home against Oakland, only 8,400, but playing him with Cease and then like a chalky offense, I think you're just drawing too much ownership. And Bassett's the one guy I'm willing to get away from between Cease and a couple of chalky offenses I like. So I'm not going to play Bassett. The ownership is just too high for me. I definitely was looking at Sears. It's not a good spot. Toronto doesn't strike out a ton, and they're not awful. They're not amazing either. And he's in good form right now. The top pitcher tool is really knocking me off Sears, though. He is second from the bottom, only in front of James Paxton, and he's not cheap. So I do like Sears at no ownership over Bassett, but that's just a tournament play. And for me, I think I'm looking at the two guys in the Cleveland game for SB2, Bybee and or Festa. Um, Bybee is the second best pitcher on this slate in my mind. He's not as consistent as you would like your ace to be. He's not a true number one, but he has number one type upside. He showed it already this year against the Twins. The ownership is totally right in line with his top pitcher score. So I like Bassett or Bybee, excuse me, as my number two behind Cease. He's practically right in the middle price wise between those two guys, Bassett and Cease. And I would just prefer to get up to Bybee. I also think Festa at 7,300. It's not a good matchup. Cleveland, we know, has been good this year offensively, and they don't strike out. But man, you talked about like the A's over the past 7 games. Cleveland's offense has really started to slide. Quan is still really good, but he's not having nearly the first half he was. J-Ram hasn't done much lately. They've got a lot of young guys in their lineup. I think Festa is definitely in play here. I don't love him, but at 7,300, I do think he looks better than Sears. I'm not sure when I first opened the slate, I would have thought that, but Festa's got a 13.5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Sears has a 7% chance. So I'm going to ride with Festa at a little cheaper of a price point.
All right, that makes sense. Sir Charles, I got to ask you, where are you going to make the stand? Will it be next to the Dark Towers? Just checking. Just checking. So JP Sears was someone that I was all happy to stream today. I'd been picking him up the last couple days. I've been like in advance of this in my season long leagues. And then this morning, all the projection systems hated on him. So I dug into it. And as you mentioned, while he's in good form, strikeouts are just missing to the point where I actually, and with Toronto not really granting that many strikeouts, I actually ended up writing Sears as my wager of the day in the top stacks spotlight pitchers article as the under 4.5 strikeouts, even though the best odds were at that time were minus 155 on Hard Rock. Normally, I don't like taking those kinds of heavy odds. I try to find something a little more palatable in the minus 130 or better range, just because it's more interesting. But you can always find those on Odd Shopper. That is a tremendous tool that allows you to sift through all of the different odds that are out there, pitting the markets against each other or the books against each other, creating a market-based approach that shows us which odds are standing out as being ones that we want to attack. So the interesting thing with Sears here is he's projected for just 3.9 strikeouts, which is well below the 4.5 that's on his list. Even to the point where when I wrote the article, FanDuel dropped him down to 3.5, the under on 3.5 strikeouts, but they moved it to plus 124. Now that is a sucker's bet. An odd shopper could point that out. Remember, I said I like plus money wagers. Well, yeah, there's a reason they're plus money. It's because they're not in your favor. That's still a -5 expected ROI. You have Fliff and Pinnacle were down at around 230. That's almost -10% ROI. But the Hard Rock -155, points bet, and Caesars were at -160. That's 2, 3, and 4% expected ROI. So let OddsShopper do the math for you. You're saying, oh, but this is only 2%. This is only 3%. That's how it works with sports wagering when you're picking things that are not parlays. You need to grind these things out. You're hoping for somewhere around 4 or 5% ROI, but at this time of the year in baseball, there are not that many advantageous wagers left. So you're really happy with anything that's in that 3 to 4% range because we're playing this with a long-term horizon. So it's shopping those odds that make the difference. And I'm learning this more and more as I get to hang out in the discords that are dedicated to Aton and Ben Raza and Lindquist and many other contributors there, where they're giving us the bets all the time. Like Ben's just been on fire with Olympics and soccer. It's crazy stuff I would never watch, but I'm happy to tail him, especially if I have bonus bets. So anyway, that's Odd Chopper. Long story short, bringing it back to DFS. Yes, Sears disappointed the hell out of me. I'm still streaming him because I'd already used up my waivers to pick him up, but I do not really like him for DFS. You mentioned Bybee. That was kind of an interesting one for me as well. I don't know what to do with Jeffrey Springs. What are you getting a feel for his potential pitch count? He hurt his knee last year, knee or elbow, maybe it was elbow. But in any event, he missed all of last year. He's back now. And he's got a tough matchup, but he's bubbling up there in the top pitchers tool. What do you think he's going to have for a pitch count today?
I'm not worried about the pitch count. He threw 87 his last start. It's more just a matchup against Baltimore. Feel better about Festa against Cleveland than I do Springs against Baltimore. They have basically the same top pitcher percentage. Festa's a little bit lower owned. I imagine that in actuality, Festa will be higher owned. He was much higher owned than projected on the last slate. His strikeout upside. I mean, Festa's striking out like 29% of hitters, so people are going to get to him a little bit. I don't think Springs gets really owned at all. Obviously, he's a little bit cheaper, but I just can't see many people wanting to pick on Baltimore, and I'm one of those people.
That makes sense. 22 strikeouts here for Springs, or pardon me, for Festa in his last 3 starts, 14 and a third inning. He had 2 rough starts to begin his career. That was the Motor City Kitties in his second start that hung a trio of taters on him. That is ended up being 7 earned runs, but and in his opener he gave up 5 earned runs in Arizona to the Diamondbacks. People. They're on the late slate, but people have been sleeping a little bit on the Diamondbacks. They now lead the league in scoring. They're averaging 5.18 runs per game. They just took over the lead. And over the last 30 days, I think they have 18 more runs than any other team. I was looking at some of that stuff this morning because it's fun to start looking, because now we're so far into the season, you want to start looking at 30 and 60-day sample sizes just to kind of gain some trends here, etc. But no shame in having a rough outing there against Arizona. So I think he's sort of interesting. I backed my way into having a fair amount of him both picking up in season long and getting lucky against the Cubs there. But that 9 strikeouts, that's going to be hard to replicate, I think, here. How are you feeling about Lodolo?
I don't mind Lodolo. I like Bybee more. Lodolo is coming in as one of the better leveraged pitchers on the slate, so there's something to be said for that. Just an awkward price point for me, considering I like Bybee more. He's a little bit more expensive than Bybee, and you can't play everyone. So I don't think I'm going to play Lodolo here, but I do like him and his ownership, I think, more than Bassett. Definitely more than Bassett, and there isn't really anyone in that range. So I don't think he's a bad play. I just don't think I'm going to get to him personally.
All right. We have a couple good super chat questions here. So Caleb Wiggins says he wants to pay for Judge today, but where is Judge? What slate is New York? Oh, there we go. They are on. Sorry, against Texas there. The various postponed games had me all crossed up. So Judge is 6,800. Juan Soto is 6,400. They're going against Andrew Heaney today. He wants to know how can he manage to pay for Judge? Are there any cheap pitchers you would go to, or would you start to look for some cheaper bats? And if the cheaper bats is the answer, we've got another question on that. But any cheap pitching as we wrap things up here.
Yeah, I think Festa, who I've talked about, 7,300. Springs, you just mentioned. I think those are the 2 preferred cheap pitchers. But as far as just spending down and creating value, I do think it is with the bats. There's a ton of really cheap bats to look at today. Johnny DeLuca leading off 2,200. There's just guys at every position. DeCenzo at first, 2,400. There's guys everywhere to make it work.
All right. Well, let's look at that. Let's isolate that down because we have another super chat here from Jacob Dunn who says looking for some under $3,000 players. I'm assuming that is going to be DK. So guys, I think stand out across the teams. Leotis Tavares, switch hitter. He's 2,300 on DraftKings. He's batting eighth, but you get the little potential steal upside there. Half of the Oakland lineup is under 3,000. Still I've got the respect for Bassett there, but Seth Brown batting cleanup. He is 2,600. You got Ernie Clement on the other side. He's batting fifth. He's shortstop, third base eligible, going against Sears, so he has the platoon advantage. Clement does. He's 2,800. You have Austin Slater, always good against lefties, pinch hit risk with so many bats still there in Baltimore, but he is 2,200 going against Springs. You mentioned DeLuca leading off at 2,200. He's probably your number one guy because he's got the best chance of getting a fifth at bat. David Peralta still gets it done every now and then. That's a $2,300 guy. We're going to talk about some less than stellar things about Max Meyer here in just a second. And then you've got Will Brennan. I think you threw out his name. He is batting second for the Guardians. So lots of ways you can get here on this one. One last guy, Stuart Fairchild, 2,300 batting fifth going against DL Hall there. So I think that answering both the questions here for Jacob and then as well for Caleb Wiggins, look to those. There's plenty of under $3,000 guys. Find someone in the 5 or higher. Those would be your priority guys, meaning batting first through fifth. And you should be able to work at Judge without a lot of problem and still get C's here in all of this. Anything you want to add on for a lineup construction strategy before we work our way into stacks here?
Nope, let's do it.
All right. Sometimes we pick one stack, sometimes we pick two, sometimes we pick six. Wait, pick six? That's the new DraftKings game format there. You can get an extra $50 if your first time you play, if you use promo code Lindy and you wager $5, you'll get $50 back to play there on Pick6. It's the DraftKings format. It's a self-contained prop game. So it's a peer-to-peer. You're going against other gamers here. They release the props. You decide if you want to go over or under. That part's easy. These props are static. They don't change. But once the contest locks, they'll add some now and then, especially if there's injured players, but they try to keep it pretty static. But what they do is once those contests lock, you can still maneuver your picks around until the actual game's locked for the different picks. But you want to go against the masses because you're trying to find direct leverage. So if it feels like it's a coin flip opportunity and we're projecting everybody to be on one side, you just want to go to the other, because if it comes through on a coin flip, you're going to be well more suited to get a larger share of the prize pool if it comes to fruition. So that is Pick6. Covers a variety of sports, but right now, of course, the focus is on basketball. They do have some NASCAR Pick6 out there. They are only doing laps led, I think, finishing position. So not as exciting as it has been for some of the other NASCAR Pick6s, but you can focus on the baseball today. But it's a lot of fun. But promo code Lindy gets you $5 into 50 the first time you play Pick6. All right, Matt, your turn. Take us through your top stack.
Yeah, Houston looks so much better than everyone else. It's really hard to get away from Houston here. You're obviously playing into the ownership, so you're going to have to get different elsewhere. And there are other stacks I like, but I think Houston is clearly the top dog. I mean, they look better than most teams in Coors today with the weather in Boston. Paxton on the hill. This lineup is cheap. Not only are they the top overall stack 19% of the time, but they're the top value stack 17% of the time. They're getting 18% ownership. Expect numbers on the top guys to be even higher than that, but they do look really, really good here. So I'm going to say Houston is my clear number one. I'd rather play Houston and get away from like the next couple teams like the Yankees and Rangers who are also getting ownership, but I could see why someone would flip that and say, I'm not going to play Houston. I'm going to play those other two teams because they're not going to get as much love. So I do think that there's some deep diving you can do there. And then as far as like looking a little bit down on the board, I like Oakland as leverage against Bassett. Bassett is fine, but he's nothing special. And Oakland has power, and power is what wins you GPPs. It's not the best park for hitting, but it's certainly better than Oakland. So Oakland's kind of the stack I like on the low. And then I like some pieces of Cincy. I know it's not his preferred side to hit. Obviously, he's better against right-handed pitching, but if they get to Hall here, I mean, I'm sure righties are going to be coming in. And Ellie's upside is just always so high because of his running ability. So I think that's where I'm settling on. Certainly, there's other good spots on the board, but Houston, Oakland, uh, Cincinnati. I think those are the three teams that I'm going to be keying in on as of right now. Again, I think the top three are Houston, the Yankees, and the Rangers, but it's just hard to eat all that ownership.
All right, so totally agree with you on Houston. We are obviously not going to be alone in that assessment. They're going against the big Maple, that is James Paxton. Paxton, I think, was potentially at risk of just being released if he had not been traded by the Dodgers there. He wasn't on a big contract anyway, but as the Dodgers are getting more and more pitchers healthy, he doesn't really work well as I mean, he's never worked as a reliever, but he is better off as a starter. They just wouldn't really have needed him, and he's had a rough stretch. Great guy, great teammate guy. This is his second stretch with Boston. Seattle brought him back after he started his career with them. Speaking of starting his career, 2013 is when he first appeared in the league. I believe today will be his 176 or 177th start. Injuries have been a huge issue. He's got about 45 starts over the last 5 seasons. So that has been a bit of a shame. He's now in his father time remains undefeated. So even though he is a dominant, appears to be dominant on the mound at 6'7", with that crazy left hand release, things are not in his, or he is not in his heyday here. So it makes sense to look to Houston. We know the usual suspects. They've been phenomenal for the last half decade against lefties. The Padres were the team that I went to next here. I want to go against Max Meyer. Now, Meyer is a decent prospect, second best prospect for the Marlins, just inside the top 100 on industry lists. His key thing is his slider. It's awesome. Reading a lot of articles on Fangraphs. This is not my analysis, but for them, it is awesome. The challenge is he's only 6 feet tall, 190 pounds. So if you start to look, over half of his runs have been allowed this season after the fourth inning or later. So what's happening is it's harder for him to maintain that a second time, let alone even a third time through a lineup here. So that makes things a little bit tough. So even without Fernando Tatis, we know that you've got some nice concentrated power there with the Padres, even though Miami, of course, is the pitcher's park. But the key guys, Profar and Cronenworth, just have light tower power. Jackson Merrill has been hitting out of his mind this season. 296 plate appearances in lefty-righty matchups, 377 WOBA, 203 ISO. Those are kind of your main guys. Add in Manny Machado here. The one guy I really have noticed this series, because I kept looking at him in different filters and lenses, Matt, was Xander Bogaerts. He just doesn't have power. Like, even it doesn't matter, lefties, righties, he just doesn't have power. Contact's still there, but he's kind of almost a poor man's Luis Arias at this point. Hey, Luis Arias, he's very familiar with the hitting conditions there in Miami, right? The remember me spot. So I'm liking the pod squad here. Is there anything that makes you nervous about the Padres? For me, it's Xander Bogaerts.
No, I mean, not really. I don't love Bogaerts as a one-off, but in a stack, I'm fine with him. Yeah, San Diego's definitely in play for me. My favorite piece is Merrill, just on fire right now. Power, running. He looks like the best piece at 4K in my eyes. Sucks he hits 6th, but it is what it is. So stacking, mini stacking, one-off, I think Merrill is my favorite play there, but I think all the other guys you mentioned are viable. And they're another one of these teams that aren't going to get a ton of love because they're in Miami, and Houston, the Yankees, the Rangers are just going to be more popular.
All right, 567. We have 567 people watching. 7-8. That's the likes. That's a nice sequence of numbers. But let's get those likes up to 100. Come on, we have almost 600 people watching us on a Sunday morning. That is phenomenal. We appreciate you all, each and every one of you, because you know what's happening in a few Sundays? NFL. You're going to be getting the 4-hour block. Matt, the call's coming from inside your house. The door just opened behind you. I'm worried someone is going to get you.
Thought he was going to get murdered. I'm like, Matt's going to get murdered on air. Yay, we did it.
Even worse, my wife and daughter are home.
100 likes and someone comes in and chokes Matt out on air behind him. So there you go. There you go. But we've got NFL right around the corner. Of course, this means it's full best ball season. We've got free best ball rankings for you and strategy content from the one and only Matt Kajeski. All you have to do is have a stochastic account. Don't even need a subscription, just a stochastic account. Don't even have to put your credit card down, anything like that. Just have a stochastic account, put your email in there, and you get access to all of these stochastic rankings for drafters, underdog, and DraftKings. I am up to, I think I just crossed over like 170 drafts so far, Matt. I'm going to end up doing about 250 or 300 before all is said and done. So I'm very, very, very much having fun here. And I use Matt's Gizachevsky's rankings as part of my input process. All right. Moving down our stacks opportunities and selections here. You mentioned you like Oakland there as the leverage contrarian option. What else do you see amongst our 14 teams in the player?
The only other team I think that pops out a little bit to me is Boston. Again, they're facing a good pitcher in Hunter Brown, but they're high in the top stat tool. They're not going to get a ton of love today because they're facing Hunter Brown, but they get the same advantageous weather conditions that Houston gets. And they're pretty cheap because no Devers today. So I like the offenses ahead of them, Houston more, but they're going to get more ownership. And I think Boston is a nice way to get different if that's what you're trying to do.
All right. I see people asking in the chat. Yeah, there was a little mini New York meetup here. Greg and Laffy and Lindquist and who else was there? Josh went to a comedy show this weekend. So they sent out a picture of them eating dinner. I know Mike caught up with them. I think Ben was trying to catch them, but somewhere there was a train broke down or something like that. So, first world problems. But yeah, there was a little bit of a meetup this weekend for some of the guys, because as we head towards football, there aren't going to be any more free weekends here once September hits for this situation, or for the sports situation, I should say. All righty, looking around here, do I have anything else I want to hit out there? We'll talk. Anything else on the main slate? We'll break out Coors Field here, and then we'll also talk the late slate. We'll talk some home runs. We'll look at the lineup generator. Kind of again, as we said, shorter slate today because of how the games should shake out with the early game, the late game.
I got nothing on the late slate. It's only a 2-gamer, I think.
Okay, all right. I got a few. I write cover it because I'm just sadistic when it comes to these sorts of things. But looking at Coors Field, you have Spencer Schwellenbach, the rookie, going there for Atlanta. He has been rather solid. So while I do not want to play him on FanDuel, he does profile relatively well against the Rockies hitters. The Rockies will be going against Kyle Freeland. So Freeland, he's pitched literally forever in Colorado. He kind of, we know what we're getting there, but a lot of green. If you look at Austin Riley, Marcell Ozuna, Jorge Soler, Travis d'Arnaud, and even Matt Olson, who has had numbers against righties, still crushing same-handed pitching this year. 130 plate appearances, 353 WOBA, 246 ISO, and then I think did Adam Duvall really make the lineup? Shout out for him. He feels like a nice little home run one-off there. He is batting 7th today. All right. That's what we like to see. Anything you want to call out there on the Rockies or Atlanta?
I mean,
Supposed
not
to be
really. It's
Atlanta. Yeah.
yeah, it's the Braves and Coors against Kyle Freeland. I think they look as good or maybe a little bit better than Houston. So on FanDuel, they're going to take Houston ownership away, but every other team besides Houston and Atlanta and the Yankees is going to be very low owned. So play accordingly. Of those three, I still think Houston's my favorite. But I would totally understand why someone would say Atlanta is theirs.
All righty. Let's look at that late slate. So the late slate, again, just 3 games. Sorry. You've got Keter Montero going against Hayden Birdsong in San Francisco. You have Bailey Falter as the sacrificial lamb in Los Angeles going against the Dodgers, who have a 5.55 projected run total there. That is by far the highest amongst these 3 games, these 6 teams. You have Tyler Glasnow, clearly your Bucks deluxe pitching option. He has tailed off over his last few starts, knocking on wood. He's managed to stay healthy, but he's up near his career high in pitches. I think your alternative pitcher on this one is going to be Hayden Birdsong. Now, Mike can put this up on the screen. If you haven't seen Hayden Birdsong's picture, you're doing yourself a disservice here. Well, you want to see what a 15-year-old kid looks like the first time he sees boobies? Yeah, this is Hayden Birdsong. So while he is unassuming on the mound, he has actually been a decent pitcher here. So he is, get up to my notes here. So it looks like Matt Bierling is going to be out. He's dealing with a back issue. Wencio Perez, I think, is going to end up on the injured list. Riley Green is already on the injured list. So we're looking at the likes of Akil Baddoo, Javi Baez, playing prominent roles here. Rookie Colton Keith, Parker Meadows is back. This is just a terrible, terrible, terrible lineup. There we go. Mike's got that picture up there. So Birdsong actually is a decent strikeout pitcher here. I think this is a great matchup for him. Fully stretched out. He did have this worst start of his career. I think he's made like 6 or 7 starts. But he has, even with that, he is 5 starts in July. 25 and 2/3 innings. He's averaging just in the upper 90s for pitches, and he had 33 strikeouts in those 25 and 2/3 July innings. So he, I think, is someone that is a strong option today. You can pair him with Glasnow, or you can roll on FanDuel even at 6,000. Losing on FanDuel, you can roll with him at 8,600 as your pitcher on FanDuel. Maybe a little tricky for him to get that quality start. It's definitely in play, but he seems to, his pitches, because he gets so many strikeouts, his pitching tends to be a little inefficient. So he could just end up with five innings today. On the offensive side here, I think sadly, it looks like Ketel Marte is going to be out. Obviously, Christian Walker is out, but you can still look to the Arizona against Cristobal Sanchez. He is at the logged the 2nd most innings of his career already. He's starting to scuffle just a little bit here over his last few starts. So I think that is a fine spot to go to. Randall Grichuk, Lourdes Gurriel, Josh Bell. Josh Bell has good power from the right side of the plate. Those would be the ones you'd want to look for. Again, that's a shame that Walker's out. Probably going to be missing Marte, but that would put Grichuk up top, and then it'll move Eugenio Suarez into the top 5. So that's kind of your late slate look there. I think you're, in addition to the Dodgers and Diamondbacks, probably look towards the Giants. It's, even though it's a 1 o'clock local start there, it's still only going to be in the low 60s. So cool day there. The Giants do have a 4.5 implied run total, so not too shabby considering the weather conditions. But Keter Montero, not overly exciting. We'd rather have the Giants against a lefty, but they're in that mix as well. What do you have? Round us out for your top pitchers and top stacks here. We'll have Mike set up the lineup generator for us and see if chat throws out any questions here.
Just as far as the late slate goes, tough to get too different because Birdsong's getting so much ownership along with Glasnow, and they look like the clear top 2 pitchers at their respective price points. So I do like the idea of playing some Giants because they're not going to be as highly owned as the Dodgers or Phillies, but clearly the Dodgers look like the top stack, and anything else is going to be different. For me on the main slate, my top pitchers are Cease, Bybee, and Festa. And my top stacks, obviously ownership price tags, all that considered, is Houston, Oakland, and Cincy.
So interesting question here from Doug Geely. He says, hey, is anybody else getting a lot of Albert Suarez on DraftKings? Now he's working in as your SP2. Clearly that's if you're going with the Yankees, going with Cease, just the way the salary works. Suarez was going to likely end up in the bullpen there, but then Grayson Rodriguez ended up on the injured list. So you have him back in prominence. He did strike out 6 in his last start, 5 scoreless innings, but he had been adequate at best. I don't dislike it because we only have 14 starting pitchers today. I'll see. I haven't run my sims yet here. I'll see where it shakes out, but he is not someone I would anticipate getting more than 20% of from that standpoint. Let's see here. Obi-Wan wants to know if Birdsong has hit puberty yet. Not sure. I'm sure well, we'll just leave that alone. Family show after all, since it is Sunday morning. Let's look at the top stacks let's look at the lineup generator here. So fun things that we have with the lineup generator is it allows you to build out excellent lineups without a lot of work. They are available for the main slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. You can choose what type of stacks you want to build out, contrarian, chalky, or balanced. On FanDuel, you can decide if you want 4-4, 4-3, or 4-2-2 stacks, or any types. DraftKings, you can go with 5-0, 4-4, and 5-3. You can lock in a pitcher, you can lock in a hitter, and then you can start building lineups here. So the fun part with this is you build out up to 20 lineups there in your holding pen, but it crafts nothing but positive ROI lineups for you. So it's getting rid of any lineup that it does not deem a good tournament lineup. Now, how does it do that? Because it's leveraging every single tool we have here at Stochastic: top stacks, top pitchers. It's running the simulations tens of thousands of times to come up with these lineups here for you. Baseball, it's super easy to build out enough lineups that even if Matt and Mike and I were sitting here locking in the same pitcher hitter and picking every single thing else identical to each other of the half dozen different inputs we can control, it'd probably be an hour before one of us duplicated another lineup from each other. So don't worry about the duplications here. When you get to your 20 lineups, you can go to your player portfolio page. On the right side, it shows you how many times someone is in your lineup. If you click on them, it highlights their lineups and brings them to the top of the left side. You can also click on those lineups and look at the individual details. If you find your otherwise perfect lineup, but you wanted to swap somebody out, you can do so by clicking on their name. Just a little bit of mental math there, and you can adjust accordingly to add someone else in and tweak the lineup, and you're off and running. We have this for all the main sports: golf, basketball. Obviously no basketball until we get to October, but we also have it for NFL coming up, including the ability to choose game I don't want to say game scripts, but if the team is scoring higher or lower than the expected Vegas projection, you can adjust those inputs. We also have it for Showdown. So a lot of fun here, the lineup generator. All right, home runs, and then we can slide on out of here. Sorry on the timing, guys. We should have, since everybody was traveling, we should have overrode this and pushed it back 15 minutes for the start time, since it ended up just being a shorter slate here in the 1:35 start. But who do you have for your home runs as we wind things down?
Well, it's definitely not going to be Luis Robert because he's not on the slate and he sucks.
Pinch hit home run for Luis. How much can we get on that? It's like +8.
Well, they don't play today, so I didn't mean that he wasn't in the lineup. I meant they're not on the slate.
+1 million.
Yeah, right. So I am going to go with part of the Oakland stack I like, JJ Bleday.
All right. I can respect that. I'm going to go with the old guy, Gary Sanchez.
Ooh, great call. Love that.
Lodolo. So we shall see. It looks like he's batting third today. So that should be a little bit of fun. The game, of course, is in Milwaukee, so not Great American Ballpark, but that is still a fun one there. Today I think I'm going to do some best ball drafts. So reminder, we do have that free best ball content here, courtesy of Matt Kajeski. All you got to do is have a Stochastic account. Again, don't need a subscription, just an account. In the upper right, you'll see in the headers it'll say best ball, and behind it in parentheses it says free. That's because it's free. You get the best ball rankings for DraftKings, for Drafters, and for Underdog. If you have not signed up for those, we do have deals with each of those sites, in particular Underdog and Drafters. Underdog, if you come in through our link, you'll get up to a $250 deposit. Up to a $250 deposit match, 50% off your first 500. So those funds come out of your account first. So it's worth doing that. And then for Drafters, I think you get a deposit match up to like 100. The fun thing on Drafters is they're doing a lot of for their best ball contests. They'll do like draft 5 in a weekend and get a bonus ticket free. They have 2 large contests there. Their big prize pool is $15 entry fee. Then they're on their second large field tournament of a $2 entry fee. So you can get in there, have all sorts of fun. It's full PPR on that side. On Underdog, it's half PPR. So there's different strategies on each site, but you can check out some of Matt's content there. So a lot of fun with best ball, and we are barely a month away from NFL. So now is the time to have some fun. Shout out to producer Mike for working on a Sunday here. Thank you, Matt, for joining me 3 days in a row. We're on a 3-day streak here. You guys can find Matt on Twitter at Fantasy Tips Matt. You can find me at EMac DFS, and of course, it is Stochastic_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.
Guys are clear.